My daughters and I have decided that our next Pathfinder 2E adventure is going to be Crown of the Kobold King Anniversary Edition. I'm going to be preparing for our first game session, and I'd love for you to join me. Let's roll. Hello, friends. I'm Brian at Jacoby, and today we're going to take a look at some game prep that I'm doing for the Crown of the Kobold King Anniversary Edition adventure. So, if you're not familiar with this adventure, this is a combination of three classic Paizo modules: Hollow's Last Hope, Crown of the Kobold King, and Hungry Are the Dead. These three adventures are, I think they were all originally 3.5 edition modules that were released many years ago by Paizo, and they have taken this content, put them together into one cohesive adventure, changed some of the story around so that these three individual modules fit together a little more seamlessly. And of course, updated the mechanics for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So my daughters and I played through the Pathfinder beginner box set, and primarily based on the cover of Crown of the Kobold King, they decided this is the next adventure that they want to tackle. So, let's pull up some of my notes that I've started taking and take a look at how I think about game prep as we get ready for this upcoming game. So, over here on the left side, I have my Google Doc open for Crown of the Kobold King game prep. This is really where I sort of put together some of my thoughts prior to a game, kind of to help me just get things organize my thoughts a bit. On the right side of the screen, we have the Crown of the Kobold King PDF that I downloaded from Paizo's website. I also have the physical copy. It's downstairs. I don't have it with me in my office right now. But I bought the physical copy, and then when I was putting these notes together, I thought it might be handy to also have the PDF so that I can reference it on screen a little bit easier, as well as having the PDF makes it a little bit easier to put together some of the content if I'm running this in a virtual tabletop. So, generally, when I'm preparing for a game, these are the steps that I like to take. First, I figure out what is the background of the adventure. If it's a homebrew, kind of what are the ideas, like what's the plot that we're trying to get involved in. This is a pre-written adventure, so somebody has already taken care of all of the pre-thought around what's going to come up in this adventure. What happened in the past to shape the course of the adventure. What is the current date? If you're running this in an established timeline, are there things in the campaign world, the published campaign world, that have happened before this or have not yet happened? So that's the case with this particular adventure. When they rewrote this, they said, here's an idea of the timeline in the Golarian history, if you're playing according to Pathfinder 2nd Edition rules, paying attention to the Golarian history. Here's where this series of adventures slots into the timeline at a macro level. For me, as the GM, that has become important in the past because I have done things like not paid close attention to timelines, and then when players ask me, how old is this artifact, or how old is this grave site that we've come upon, or this tomb, or the writing that we've discovered? And I sometimes struggle with that, waffling back and forth between, is it 10 years old, 100 years old, 1,000 years old, 2 days old? So for me, understanding what's the current date, what's the timeline leading up to the current date, and things that'll happen in the future, having an idea of how those things relate to each other is important for me, and is something that I've started keeping much closer track of because of some weird situations that I've created for myself in homebrew games. What are the current and future events that shape the course of the adventure? Again, this has already been spelled out within the published adventure, so really the core piece here is reading through the adventure, understanding all of the elements that have been written down, figuring out if there are things that we're going to change, how the events that are spelled out within the book itself, how that relates to my characters, and the type of game that we want to be playing. The plot hooks. If I'm running a homebrew game, how do players find out about, or how do characters in the game find out about the adventure? How do they get their information? What makes it important enough for them to embark on an adventure? That's another huge piece. So those are the steps that I take. Again, the plot hooks are already spelled out, and within Crown of the Kobold King, we have 4 basic plot hooks that we're presented with in the first part of the adventure. A missing person. So when characters show up in this town of Falcon's Hollow, they can find out about somebody who's gone missing. He's a lumber camp employee, and people haven't seen him for a while. What's going on with that? An elusive antidote. Part of this adventure, no spoiler intended, but there are some sicknesses that are afflicting folks around town, and one of the apothecary is trying to gather some herbs and things like that. So, having the player characters go out looking for some of the ingredients that the apothecary needs is another one of the plot hooks. Dark Moon Beast. So in this region of Golarion, Dark Moon Vale, there's a mysterious beast that some of the lumber camp employees have seen. They've been frightened of, stuff like that. And so the player characters might be hired to go look for this Dark Moon Beast. And then following footsteps is the 4th plot hook. So the rewritten version of this follows sort of the course of somebody who comes into town and is doing some research, and I won't go too much into that, but basically following that person's research, trying to find out whatever happened to him, that would lead the characters to sort of the next set of encounters within the adventure. So understanding how all of those things work, how they will be presented to the players, the player characters, what are some things that are going to make this important. So within the context of how I'm going to be playing with my daughters, we're going to be tapping heavily on missing person and elusive antidote, and probably also following footsteps. Those 3 are going to be the primary hooks that I send out there, and then along the way, they're also going to be get some clues for the Dark Moon Beast plot hook. So they have multiple fronts that they're kind of working on. Elusive antidote, the way that I'm going to present that is one of the traveling companions that they're with is affected by this illness that's going around Falcon's Hollow. And so the apothecary basically says, "Hey, this is pretty bad, and we need these herbs in order to help combat this sickness." So that's one of the primary hooks that I'm going to be working with. Up next, understanding players and characters. So again, understanding the players and characters. This is how you figure out how these plot hooks are going to sink in, right? Understanding what's going to entice them to take that bait, so to speak. So players and characters. These are my daughters. I understand the players pretty well, and we've gone through the process of creating characters, so I understand what their characters are good at, what their backgrounds are, stuff like that. So in item number 2 here, understanding players and characters, knowing what brought those characters to the starting point of the adventure. So we've already started playing through sort of a pre-play, not quite session 0, but I've already introduced their characters to each other and kicked off a bit of how they're coming into this, and I'll talk about that in a second. Understanding what are the character goals and what are the player's goals. What are the characters good at, and what's the personality of the player. Um, what do they enjoy when they're playing a role-playing game? Are they playing this character solely because this character is good at combat? Are they more interested in social encounters? Are they doing this to obtain a bunch of gold or create influence in the game world? Or, what is it? Magic items, discovering clues, understanding really kind of what makes that player tick and what's going to help them enjoy the game and keep coming back to the table. So, what brought the characters to the starting point of the adventure? So, the way that I'm playing this, we're actually starting out in the town of Almus, which is south of Falcon's Hollow, if you're familiar with Golarion lore. Uh, my younger daughter is playing a gnome bard, and I released a video a while ago walking through her character creation process. So she is with a band of traveling entertainers. And so they're being hired to go to Falcon's Hollow, sort of a USO type tour type of thing. Somebody from the Lumber Consortium, their HR department has decided, hey, we're going to throw some money at bringing a bit of entertainment to these lumber camps. So Falcon's Hollow is one of the first stops along the way. Um, my older daughter is playing an investigator character, and I haven't released her character creation process yet because there are still a couple of things we need to tweak, but she has her basic character concept ready, and that allowed us to play sort of an introductory initial setting or initial session that was only about an hour long, maybe. She is being hired to take a look at what's actually happening in these lumber camps. What are the conditions that these lumber camp employees are working under? What's the morale? Stuff like that. Because while the Lumber Consortium is very much interested in maximizing profit, maybe there are either some people within the Lumber Consortium who are curious about how much of a hold the folks in Falcon's Hollow, how they are representing the company as a whole, as well as making sure that uh, the lumber camp employees have a base level of health and stuff like that, because they don't want to scare too many people away from working in the lumber camps, stuff like that, basic HR stuff, making sure that they're at least aware of what's going on. Not that they're going to do anything about it, but they at least want to be aware. So they're sending my older daughter's character to investigate the living conditions and sort of see what's up. So she's playing it sort of as a little bit of a spy. So she's embedded with this entertainment group, and they're going to be traveling up to Falcon's Hollow. My younger daughter, like her personality type is that she wants to, she's already written songs for her character. She wants to perform. She wants to make friends and have influence over NPCs in the game world. My older daughter is very interested in sort of subterfuge and trickery and things like that. So we'll see how that plays out as we get farther along. But very much, they're both very interested in social encounters being a heavy portion of the game. So that's something that I have to think about as we move into this into the actual gameplay, making sure that it's not completely combat heavy, but making sure that they have enough interaction with NPCs and enough social encounters that it becomes fun for them. So item number 3 on my list is locations. Understanding where the players are going to be adventuring, or where the characters are going to be adventuring, and how do you describe those things to the players so that it's as immersive as possible. So understanding, being able to come up with descriptions of locations as they're moving. They're traveling north from Almus to Falcon's Hollow. Being able to describe it's early spring. What's the temperature like? What's the weather like? What are the road conditions like? Things like that, so that they can really get a sense of, okay, my character has to, basically we're wearing not heavy cloaks, but maybe there's a little bit of wind. There's still a little bit of chill in the air. The weather is probably going to be a little bit rainy and more damp. I'm using the Pacific Northwest to sort of set the tone for what the weather's going to be like. It's spring right now, and so they'll be able to very easily understand what that weather's like. Maps and tactical maps. I've already provided them with a geography map showing them here's Almus where we're starting, here's Falcon's Hollow where you're going to end up. This is the number of days that it's going to take to travel up, as long as you don't encounter any unforeseen problems along the way. If a wagon breaks down, if the pass is too muddy or the road is too muddy, whatever else, there might be some delays in getting to Falcon's Hollow in a timely manner. But these are all things that they're able to look at the geographic map and kind of see where they are. It's going to take a couple days to get up to Falcon's Hollow, so understanding what are the stops along the way and stuff like that. Also, tactical maps for me as a GM, making sure that I've prepared a couple of things. So I want to make sure that I prepare kind of a roadside camp map, because there are a couple of initial encounters that I want to throw at them, just so they get their feet wet with a bit of combat encounter to play these characters, because these are new characters for them. Having like little maps of their wagons was very interesting for them. So I have them traveling in kind of entertainer wagons. If you think of like old fortune teller type of wagons or circus wagons, that's basically how they're going to be traveling. So a couple of people per wagon, and having like little floor plans of the wagon is actually really fun for them, because they start to plan out like, here's where I'm going to sleep, and here's where I'm going to put my stuff and stuff like that. How am I going to decorate my wagon? Photo references. So I haven't pulled in too many photo references for this yet, but it's something that I was thinking about, that having photo references is a great way to pull your characters into understanding, here's what I'm thinking. So as I was thinking through Falcon's Hollow, Old West sort of depictions started coming up for me. Old lumber towns, old mining towns, stuff like that. So I'm going to be using some photos similar to that to pull into my GM binder, so that I can show my daughters, like, here's an idea of like this very muddy road coming into Falcon's Hollow. Here's kind of the living conditions that you're looking at. I may use some AI image generators to help with that. I know there's a bit of push and pull about whether or not that's a good idea, or is it stealing from other people's artwork, stuff like that. I have no intention of publishing this anywhere. This is purely for personal use, and so hopefully forgive me if you're staunch, so like firmly on the anti AI image front. One other thing that I'm going to be making heavy use of is sounds in my campaigns. If you have not used Sirenscape, if you're not familiar with Sirenscape, check it out. This obviously isn't sponsored by Sirenscape, but there will be a link in the video description down below. Sirenscape is an application that you can run on your phone, your tablet, your laptop or desktop. It provides a really great set of ambient background sounds for a wide variety of locations or even game types. They have fantasy, they have sci-fi, Old West, they have some Call of Cthulhu sound sets. They have multiple free versions of sound sets that you can use just in the background of your game. And it's really fantastic. So go check it out if you're not familiar with it. So I'm going to be using Sirenscape as we play through the game. Again, it creates another level of immersive gameplay, drawing on every sense. Obviously we're not going to be tasting. Maybe I'll make some food and have it for them while we're playing the game, to kind of play on the taste of eating at a certain restaurant or an inn within Falcon's Hollow. Actually, I'll come back to that in just a minute, because I just had a great idea. Photo references to create visual reference, sound to draw on auditory senses. So that's spelling out locations and figuring things out. Like, what are all of the different locations that we might be entering? The taverns, the towns, the forested areas. Making sure that I have some battle maps on hand, just in case we need to go there. Next, I have mapping NPCs. Both NPCs who are going to be providing assistance or friendly with the player characters, but also sort of the nefarious villains. If they're going to be encountering anybody in the first couple of sessions, I want to kind of spell out who those people are, create an idea in my head of where I'm going to draw inspiration for those characters. So understanding who they're going to meet, and then of course understanding who's delivering plot hooks or clues. So I've started mapping that out here in my Google Doc list. Up first, and these characters are spelled out within the Crown of the Kobold King published adventure, so there's not too much work that I have to do as far as who these characters are, what their motivations are, and things like that. But something that was fun for me, I recently rewatched the HBO series Deadwood, and I watched it because I'm in one of the gaming groups that I'm playing in. We're playing Deadlands, which is a sort of a Weird West type of game. So I went back and watched Deadwood to kind of put myself into that frame of mind and kind of think about my character and stuff like that. What I realized is that Deadwood is a great reference point for Falcon's Hollow. In the show Deadwood, it's a mining camp, and there are some characters who are using their influence and power for their personal gain, very ego-driven, and that's very similar to what we see in Falcon's Hollow. The difference being that it's a mining town or a lumber town instead of a mining town. But I'm going to be using Deadwood as an inspiration for some of these characters, both in the game with my daughters, but also when I run this for other groups. So Cabrin Bloodeye, I'm not going to get too deep into like who he is, but he runs a brothel and gambling hall. And so Cy Tolliver from Deadwood, maybe I'll throw in a reference clip.
Now that's an attitude right there I want us to counsel on. Smart alecky sort of attitude, almost with a quality of anger to it. I don't find exact words for it, but it disturbs and concerns me.
He's the character that I'm going to be referencing when I think about Cabrin Bloodeye. Tholdrin Creed. He is not the mayor of town, but he pulls a lot of strings in town. He's sort of one of the final remaining founding family members of Falcon's Hollow. He reminds me, or what I'm going to be drawing on for him, the inspiration is George Hurst from Deadwood.
The day has quite displeased
What
me.
will help you find a name for your feelings? Shall we cut open your belly for you to wrap your guts around a pole?
You seem distraught.
I am not! I await an outcome, and the readying for it wearies me.
Oh, dear.
Have you smelt human flesh on the spit?
How would I have?
I know the smell.
You have been to and fro in the world.
It pleased me to find out.
In Deadwood, George Hurst represents sort of like the deep pockets, untouchable kind of character who isn't afraid to hire somebody to go murder someone if that gets him a step closer to what he wants. So I'm going to be using him, George Hurst, that character from Deadwood, as an inspiration for Tholdrin Creed. Up next, Deldrin Baleson. He is the town sheriff, and the inspiration I'm going to be drawing there is Timothy Oliphant's character from Deadwood.
People angry at their difficulties often act like idiots, but there'll be no murdering people in this camp or assaults on officials of any stripe.
Even Yankton thieves who are in league with God knows who.
Officials from Yankton or otherwise, or thieves or not. If you can't live with that, get out of this camp.
That's who I'm going to be modeling Deldrin Baleson after. Deldrin Baleson also has an adventure hook, Following Footsteps, which I talked about earlier on. So presenting the player characters with this idea that, hey, I'm trying. I found these notes that this person left here, some reference material. I don't know whatever happened to that guy, and I'm kind of interested to find out, whatever happened to him. Up next in my list of NPCs, Jack Crimmy. So Jack Crimmy is owns the Jackanapes Tavern in Falcon's Hollow, and is a bard that has some potential adventuring history. The way that I'm playing this, Jack Crimmy is close friends with one of the mentors of my younger daughter. So Jack Crimmy is going to be one of the first NPCs that the players meet when they come to Falcon's Hollow. And Jackanapes is kind of known for their cinnamon pancakes. And so that might be how I pull taste into maybe one of our first sessions, making some cinnamon pancakes for my daughters to enjoy while we play this. So Jack Crimmy, they're going to be meeting Jack Crimmy. I don't have an inspiration yet for her character. So that's still something I have to kind of figure out how I want to play that. But I kind of want her to be a bit of a punk rock sort of inspiration. She was kind of wild in her days and likes maybe fast, energetic music, young at heart, and kind of gives I don't give an F kind of attitude. The next NPC I've listed out here is Laura Gebr. She is the apothecary in town. So she's the one who presents the adventure hook and elusive antidote. And again, I don't have a particular inspiration yet for her. I'm thinking maybe some, she's kind of hippie and earthy. So basically what's going to happen is the mentor, who's friends with Jack Crimmy, falls ill shortly after they arrive in Falcon's Hollow. Jack Crimmy is going to be concerned. That should concern my younger daughter, at least, because her mentor has fallen ill. So they visit with Laura Gebr, and Laura Gebr is the one who presents this idea. I need some extra ingredients. Here's where you might be able to find them out within Darkmoon Vale. Go find them for me, and I'll be able to fix this up. Brixenerd Hildren Socks, I just like to say that name, really, is a gnome wizard who lives in town and owns the Goose and Gander. The inspiration for this character is the doorman at Emerald City from The Wizard of Oz.
Who rang that bell? We did. Can't you read?
Read what?
The notice.
What notice?
It's on the door, as plain as the nose on my face.
And this character, basically, I'm going to introduce him by way of when the entertainment group is performing somewhere in Falcon's Hollow. Brixenerd Hildren Socks is going to be very excited to see another gnome, to hear this great music, and so Brixenerd Hildren Socks wants to be friends with my younger daughter's character, and maybe even my older daughter's character. Maybe while my younger daughter's character is on stage playing, maybe he's like so hyped up and gets to know my older daughter's character a little bit, and introduces himself and stuff like that, and is really excited about seeing another gnome in town, meeting them, hearing about their adventures and stuff like that. So I think he's going to play a prominent role, and that might also unlock some possibilities for exchange of magical ideas or identifying magical items, things like that. And the last NPC that I have listed out here is Surthana Gensar, who is she is the cleric at the Temple of Iomade. She has the missing persons adventure hook, and so I'm not yet sure how I want to introduce her to the player characters, but I want them to have the ability to pick up on this missing persons hook, because I think that's important. Maybe Jack Crimmy, maybe while they're staying at Jack Crimmy's, the Jackanapes Tavern, while they're eating there or something, maybe Surthana is friends with Jack Crimmy and comes in, sort of asking if Jack has seen this missing person, if they've heard anything, etc. Maybe that's how she gets introduced. Up next on my sort of macro game prep list is understanding the potential encounters that are going to be coming up, at least for the next session. So, having mapped out some ideas of social encounters, combat encounters, if there will be any, and I think there will be in the first session, just again to kick things off and at an exciting pace, and to get my daughters used to what these new characters are good at when it comes to combat and puzzles and games. So I think my daughters are mostly going to be interested in the social encounters and the puzzles and games. I want to set up maybe some skill challenges. My younger daughter is going to be performing on stage. My older daughter might be doing acrobatics on stage. They both might be interested in like a hatchet throwing game. This is a lumber camp. It seems like it would be a good idea to have some hatchet throwing games. So basically, using their their throwing weapons skills to see if they can hit the bullseye of a target. And maybe there's an NPC that challenges them to if you win this, I'll buy rounds for you. If I win this, you have to buy rounds for me. And depending on how they play it out, maybe that person becomes a friendly ally in town. Maybe that's how we unlock the what's it called? The Dark Moon Beast plot hook. Maybe this person has heard of the Dark Moon Beast, and when he finds out that that my daughters are adventurers, maybe that's when he presents this thing. And then I have some assets that I've created for virtual tabletop play. With my daughters, we're not going to be playing on virtual tabletop, but I'm probably going to print these out, punch them out with a 1-inch circular hole punch, so that I have little pogs for these NPCs. My daughters are going to have minis for their characters for when we do, any sort of tactical movement. Maybe even just while they're playing in a tavern, like have their minis set up so that they have some reference for where they're at within a tavern. These assets I created using a really great tool called Token Tool. And I have another video for that. I'll link it somewhere around here, and I'll also put the Token Tool URL in the video description down below. So that is how I am preparing for initial sessions of our Crown of the Kobold King game. If you have a tendency to overplan, which is something that I have done notoriously in the past, I highly recommend checking out Sly Flourish's Lazy DM material. He's got the Lazy DM workbook, Return of the Lazy DM, or GM, as he's beginning to call it now after the Wizard of the Coast tomfoolery. Also, go check out his YouTube channel. I'll link it down below. So Mike Shea from Sly Flourish. He goes through weekly game prep, and you can kind of see how he puts his notes together and thinks about what happened during past sessions, what might be happening in upcoming sessions, and how does he plan for that to maximize his time so that he's not spending countless hours preparing for every possible outcome, but mapping out some key elements so that he can have that ready for the next game session with his gaming groups. So if you have game prep notes that you put together for Crown of the Kobold King, or suggestions that you might have, drop them in the comments below. I would super appreciate that. Hit like and subscribe. Again, I appreciate that. I appreciate you. And until we meet again, roll well, my friends.